Hello everyone, my name is Phawx. I have awesome news. We finally have official gyro support coming to the Asus ROG Ally. By the time you're seeing this, it should be available on November 30th, but by the time you're seeing this, I'll have had the beta application for about 2 weeks now where I've been able to test out gyro, and for what it's worth, it's been working perfectly. In fact, there is a method to calibrate the gyro. I just didn't need to use it. I will show you how to calibrate the gyro using Asus's Armoury Crate directly on the device itself. But I didn't necessarily need to do it. Also, we're going to show off how I use gyro and the ways that you can enable gyro per game and the different types of features and functionalities that you can get out of it. Now, I'm still a gyro noob, and I want to get better at using gyro generally. It still breaks my brain whenever I'm using the right analog stick and I need to use gyro. It's like patting my head and rubbing my stomach at the same time. My brain just really starts to crumble when I need to engage that muscle. But it's something that I generally want to start doing and producing a new core muscle memory for just better aiming on these types of controllers, because I know I have seen people be super sick with gyros. So that's something that I want to just try to generally get better at. So we're going to demo that. We're also going to be treating this video as a little bit of a 6-month update to where Asus was and where they are now and how far they've come, because truthfully speaking, Asus has done so much with Armoury Crate and all the different updates for the Asus ROG Ally where we're getting to a reasonable level with all the software that they've done on top of Windows, where they have kind of minimized Windows in the background. Windows is still there, but with the front end that they have and how they're installing games and how they're running games, all of that Windows stuff is kind of fading off into the background. We're also going to talk about how they do different things in modern standby, which they call extreme modern standby. That's something that I want to test further, but that's another thing that I want to talk about. So there's lots of little features that they're really honing in to what makes a handheld special, and Asus really deserves kudos for here. So at this point, let's go ahead and pivot over. We're going to start talking about how these features are and how they actually work, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Up first with the latest updates for the Asus ROG Ally via Armoury Crate. In the background, you can see I have this Armoury Crate SE Beta watermark that's going through everything. You won't have that. I've had this Armoury Crate Beta for around 2 weeks now. I should be able to show this off on the 28th. It will be generally available on November 30th, and at which point you won't have this Armoury Crate Beta that is spread over the entirety of the application. First, let's go into how you would go to calibrate the gyro if you needed it. For what it's worth, I never needed to calibrate the gyro. It just really worked. So what you're going to see here is you can see that this is what the gyro data shows in the calibration screen. However, if you wanted to calibrate it, it says lay the ROG Ally on a stationary surface. So basically, you just want to make sure that all of these are centered as they are. Go ahead and press A. It's the progress bar where you're going to see right here is going to go all the way down, and then it's going to go all the way back up. When it finishes, it's going to say complete. At this point, you can go ahead and say done. We've already calibrated. Again, for what it's worth, I didn't need to calibrate my gyro initially or at all, but if you do, that's how you would do it. And then how you would go and enable gyro is via this function right here. So in your game library, your front end for where all of your games are installed, if you don't see the game that you have, go ahead and just slide down. This will refresh and look at all the games where they should be, and then populate them in the Armoury Crate front end right here. Once you have your game, you're going to go ahead and press X. This is going to jump into a specific game profile specifically for this game is Proteus, which I have installed via Steam. Then you're going to go ahead and go to gyro. You can also change any other settings that you want that will be specific for this game profile. For gyro behavior, we're going to go ahead and say as right stick. So effectively, we're using X input for our input method, and we're saying gyro is going to control the right analog stick for X input. I'm not changing anything for gyro sensitivity or a dead zone or anything else. The gyro enable button, now there's different ways that you can do this. You can have it on or off, to toggle on or off. I have as left trigger because in this particular demo, what I'm going to be showing is that if you were going to be playing a game where left trigger is typically going to be your iron sights, this is when you want to effectively have better finesse over how you're aiming. That is something that I'm trying to rationalize myself because I would really love to use gyro more often. And then here you can see gyro turning axis. You can do combined yaw roll and yaw or roll. And right here you can invert the horizontal axis. But we're going to leave most of these at the default, and the only thing I'm doing here is right stick. So now that this is set, we're going to go ahead and launch Proteus, and this will go ahead and fire it up. Alright, so the game is loaded. You can see with the right analog stick I can move around, and if I use the gyro without using any of the button, none of the gyro is working. But as soon as we go ahead and bring up our iron sights, we can see that Gyro is working officially through the Armory Crate, and we don't need any other software installed like I had demoed off earlier with using Handheld Companion. All of this will now just work with the official software from Asus themselves. So that was the quick demo for official gyro support on the Asus ROG Ally via Armory Crate itself. For what it's worth, I love all the options that are there, and I like that I can quickly and easily enable per profile, per game of how it works. I think with the iron sights method, this is something that won't break my brain. I just have a hard time when I'm using a right analog stick or just moving around in general, and especially like on the Steam Deck, which has a conductive pad, and with that enabled, it can kind of break my brain a little bit. So I want to maybe take a little bit of baby steps getting into it with just using iron sights to just like kind of lock into things. I've found that the gyro that's on the Asus ROG Ally is something that I am aligning with. Like I can wrap my head around it. Like I can generally grossly aim with the right analog stick and then use my iron sights to like be very specific, almost like a mouse. But again, even though it's taking control of the right analog stick, I'm actually able to finesse it reasonably well. So I'm kind of hopeful that I can start using gyro, because I know that gyro is like a fantastic way to aim. Especially on a handheld, but also a controller, much better than on an analog stick. So it's something that I just generally want to get better at. So that's the demo of gyro working on the Asus ROG Ally via the latest version of Armory Crate. I wanted to quickly go over some of the other features that have been around for a while on the Asus ROG Ally, but I haven't talked about them yet. And speaking of like an update to my old review on the Asus ROG Ally, there's a lot that Asus has done here that I feel is worth complimenting. One of the things that I do like is their end task button seems to work exactly as you would expect it to. So you go ahead and click end task, and it instantly closes the game. Some other things that I wanted to show off that are available on the latest version of Armory Crate. Now, this is something that has been available for a bit now on Armory Crate, is the ability to go to 900p mode for the desktop resolution. They have 1080p, they have 720p, but 900p is a very nice balance from all of the other options that you have available to you, where you are getting something that is better than 720p resolution and something that is not as much as 1080p, but you get something that approaches the best of both worlds and in between of those without having to demand as much performance as running at a full 1080p resolution. So that 900p resolution change that they added about a month or so ago is another nice feature that Asus has added, and has been a feature that has made the Asus ROG Ally more of a well-rounded machine. Another important change that I want to highlight that Asus has brought to Armory Crate for the ROG Ally is the ability to quickly enable or disable CPU Turbo Boost. And what we can see here, this is a video that I've done in the past, and it's something that a lot of people really have a trouble understanding. We don't really need all this much power to run games, right? Like what we're looking at right now, take a look at our CPU boost frequency. We're running at 3.5 gigahertz. We don't need to run at 3.5 gigahertz to run this game at 120 FPS. Take a look at our APU right now. Our APU is using 15 watt. Our battery is using 21.5 watt. So we're pulling 21.5 watts out of the battery, right? That is our total system power. It's the 6.5 watts over the APU power itself. Now, one of the things that Asus has added that I appreciate, even though I would have preferred something that's more like auto TDP that I've showed off in previous videos, is that we can go ahead and disable Turbo Boost. So Turbo Boost is on, and you can see that we're at 3.5 gigahertz. I'm going to go ahead, say Turbo Boost off, and take a look at Turbo Boost. And we're going to go back down to 2.5 gigahertz, and that's where we're going to be. And if we take a look at our APU, we are at 9 watts now instead of 15 watts, so we're saving 6 watts from the package itself. Our battery is slowly going to normalize. You can see we're using 17.3 watts. This is going to go down a little bit further. So effectively, we're going to be saving 6 or so watts. And you may think, well, what's the big difference? 6 watts on the battery for the Asus ROG Ally. Again, we're only a 40 watt hour battery here. We went from having basically a little bit under 2 hours of battery life to now we're at battery 15. That's 2.5 hours, about 2.5 hours of battery life. So we went from let's say 90 minutes of battery life to 2.5 hours. So we gained an hour of battery life by changing one setting, and take a look. take a look at our FPS. We're still at 120 FPS. Now remember, we have a VRR screen on the Asus ROG Ally, so this is always going to be absolutely smooth the entire time when we're playing this. We don't need 3.5 gigahertz to run dead cells. We are just fine with, what do we have in 2.5 gigahertz? We're more than fine with 2.5 gigahertz, and we just save 6 watts for ourselves instantly by just instantly pressing this one button right here. So that's another feature that Asus added for Armoury Crate that is a small thing that they could do that is very easy and can make a big impact. And you don't need this all the time. Even for 3D games where we're very GPU bound, we would like to disable turbo boost so that we have more power going to the GPU. This is not just for indie games. This is going to work for a lot of different instances. So that one little change, even though, again, I wish that we had something that was like auto TDP, because then we would be able to get the maximum battery life out of this. But still, this is a very easy change that Asus has implemented, and I'm a big fan of it. Another feature that I like that Asus did, and I would like if there was just a little bit more customization to it. Right now, you could always have moved this around, but having it be a square block wasn't really the best. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. But you have a few different options right now. You have this minimal one, and then you have this one that's like a row and a bar. This is basically like level 2 mode on the Steam Deck. Now, again, you can just go ahead and, if I can, my finger will work. You can go ahead and kind of like snap that to the top of your screen. I just wish that there was some ability that we can kind of enlarge this, maybe add some extra parameters in there. That's something that I would personally like. But overall, the solution that they have provided as it is right now is another big step to making, frankly, Windows work really well on a device that is a Slate-like handheld device. So Asus is really doing a fantastic job here. There's one other feature that Asus has done here that I want to talk about. Another feature that I want to talk about that Asus has included, and this is an old feature, so I'm talking about this now when it's way late at this point, but it's still a thing that I want to mention, is that right here you can see where they added the VRAM size, so we can change it from 1 gig to 8 gig to auto. I have mine at 4 gig. This feature is old. It's not new or anything, but I'm just so glad that Asus has done the work and continually updated the ROG Ally to the point where 6 months later, we have so much features and functionality built into Armoury Crate that we have, honestly, the best implementation for a software layer that makes Windows actually usable as a PC gaming handheld without needing a keyboard and mouse. And they've done a lot where I'm actually really enjoying everything. So kudos to Asus for doing this. Now, there's also one other feature that is rather huge, and I want to just talk about it, but I still have to test it to see how it works, and that is with regard to Extreme Standby Mode. So it says, when enabled, Extreme Standby Mode provides even longer battery life under Modern Standby. Note that the power indicator LED light will be disabled under Extreme Standby Mode. Now, Modern Standby is not a great standby. So when Windows kind of forced everyone in this, S3 was what we were using before, and that was pretty much everything was shutting down except power was still on for RAM. And that worked reasonably well and didn't take all that much power. Modern Standby works different, where there's a lot of the system that's still awake. You can still do updates, you can still do other stuff. So Wi-Fi is still up, so there's still a lot of things running in the background. And with Extreme Standby Mode enabled, where basically Asus is overriding what Modern Standby is doing with some additional parameters to extend battery life in standby mode. That is super huge, and is Asus really deserves a kudos there. I still have to test this to see how well it does, but this is just an update video on where we are with the latest version of Armoury Crate, and truthfully, Asus deserves all the kudos here, so great job to Asus for what they've done. The continual updates that Asus has done for the Asus ROG Ally, showing their commitment to making a Windows-based PC gaming handheld the best it could possibly be without needing a mouse and keyboard. They are doing a fantastic job. All the features that they've added, you can see they're getting community support and answering them. You can even disable the internal gamepad for when you're docking and you need to connect an external Bluetooth controller. Lots of times, because the controller on the device itself, this will be controller port 1. So that'll always be activated. So when you dock it and then you connect another controller, that's port 2. So disabling the onboard controller via a simple mechanism on the Armoury Crate software is a way to easily go ahead and get those Bluetooth controllers working in a docked mode. So those little features, those little things that they're paying attention to matter a lot. Disabling CPU Turbo Boost is a huge help, and I showed that in this particular video. Obviously, we would want something that's more akin to like what auto TDP is, like things that I've shown in previous videos. That would be able to extract the most amount of battery life out of the device as possible, but I'll take what I can get at this particular moment, and Asus has done a lot to make gaming on a Windows-based PC gaming handheld without a keyboard and mouse as best as it possibly can be. So really, Asus does deserve credit here. Great job, guys. I look forward to seeing what else you guys can do. That's it from me. I hope this video was informative. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.